I'll go ahead and get started with just a quick introduction about my personal experience with Dr. Turner. I found out who Dr. Turner was through my husband, Dr. Howell, and I know that they have passed patients back and forth to each other for their different expertise in what they do. And so I had just heard of Dr. Turner from my husband. And for those of you, most everybody knows me really well, but for those of you who don't, for my introduction, I just put together a quick timeline of the last few years of my life and the changes that I've went through and where Dr. Turner has played a role in that. So starting in September of 2017, I went through some really hard times in my personal and family life, with my sister going through a pretty severe heroin overdose. As you can imagine, if you've ever went through that or not, that's pretty stressful, emotional stress on you and your family and stuff like that. So then in November of 2017, just 2 months later, I brought he was 15 at the time, my 15-year-old nephew in to live with me and my husband. So I had a 3-year-old and a 6-year-old, and then all of a sudden a 15-year-old. So that was a huge life change, and I think stressor that you don't realize at the time, like just different stress on your body. During all of that, I was training for a pro fight that took place in January of 18. And so just that alone is a huge stress on your body. You're overtraining, you're under eating because you're trying to make weight, and then also all that emotional stress and new life changes with my nephew. I don't think at the time I realized how much was going on and the effect that it would have later on. So the fight was awesome. I was in fantastic shape. I knocked her out, top of the world. That year, 2018, was a really great year for me. I was super duper fit. I made a goal of putting on 10 pounds because I was trying for the UFC show and I needed to be 10 pounds heavier. I did that. I put on 5 pounds of muscle and 5 pounds of fat, and I was like a lot more muscly, I guess, however you say that, than I was used to being. I didn't get on the show. So fast forwarding to January of 2019, my New Year's resolution was to start running again, because in putting on weight, I hadn't done that. But also what I think I hadn't done when I was lifting a lot is I didn't focus on my recovery. I was doing CrossFit 5 or 6 days a week, lifting heavy, going hard. I wasn't foam rolling. I wasn't stretching. I wasn't giving my body the recovery it needed. I was basically redlining. And I don't think I realized that. And I think part of that is because my mindset was so go, 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 that finally when I allowed myself mentally to pull back because I didn't make the show, my body just finally said, okay, that's enough. And I started suffering injury after injury after injury. And I think the only thing holding me together that long was just that adrenaline and the mindset of like, go, go, go. And in the past, in my amateur fighting, after every fight, I would get really sick for like 2 weeks. And I think that is kind of the same thing. Like your mind won't allow your body to get sick in a certain situation. But the minute that stress or that time is up, your body's like, okay, I'm done for a while. So looking back, I really think that's what happened. So January 2019, I ran all of January really hard and I hadn't ran, and I got tendinosis, really bad. Tendinosis is like an extreme form of tendinitis, according to my husband. And I was miserable. I couldn't walk. My foot throbbed all night long. I couldn't go to sleep. It was affecting my coaching because I couldn't be barefoot. It really hurt to be barefoot. So I was like, even coaching was a struggle, and I was coaching like 4 or 5 hours in a row in the evenings. Then what seemed to be worse, starting just 2 months after that, my energy was just, I didn't have any. For example, the one time I really remember really sticks out in my mind. It was about 10:30 or 11 in the morning, and I was leaving Costco. I dropped my son off at preschool at 9. Costco opens at 9:30, so I went over there to get groceries, got my groceries, and I was driving home, and I was literally like had to roll down my window, fighting, keeping my eyes open, like I was going to crash my car driving down the road at 11 o'clock in the morning. And for me, getting up at 4:11 is like midday. I hadn't just woke up. I shouldn't have been groggy. I've had my coffee. I've ate. I've worked out, all of these things. And I literally felt like I had been drugged driving down the road. I could not keep my eyes open. And so I remember that night crying, having a conversation with my husband, like, I hope, this sounds horrible to even say, but I told him, I said, I hope I have a disease, because there has to be an explanation for feeling the way I feel. And so we went to a doctor who is a high level athlete. She's an ultra marathon runner, I believe. And I thought she would be a great fit for me because she's an athlete. She'll understand me, all of these things. So I got there, I told her everything that was going on. And she basically told me, she did some blood work when I went back for my follow-up. She told me everything's fine. You just need to start competing again. Your mindset, it's just your mind. You're just not, So basically, if I'm not going to compete to fight anymore because I can't even stand on one foot, if I'm not going to compete, I'm going to fall asleep driving. Like, that's your response to what's going on with me. I was absolutely shocked. I was horrified that, like, oh my gosh. So her recommendations were to get on testosterone, which there was nothing wrong with my testosterone levels, by the way, and then also get on birth control to counteract the effect of the testosterone. So, okay, she's a doctor. I followed her recommendations. My testosterone was like $300 a month, ridiculous. It's super uncomfortable product to be using. I do not like taking birth control. I didn't like taking birth control before I was married. So that, I think, accelerated my weight gain. Birth control has always kind of made me gain weight. So now I'm even more unhappy with what's going on. I can't exercise. I'm on a product that's causing me to gain weight. And I'm thinking to myself, well, I just need to take a fight. If I just take a fight, even though I'm injured and I can't train, I'll get back to my normal self. I'll have energy again. So up until July, summer of 2019, I was kind of doing those things and just suffering daily through the testosterone, the birth control, and the mindset. And then in July, 4th of July, I was boating and I crashed skiing and I tore my hamstring pretty good. So that was probably the best thing to happen to me looking back, because it forced me to stay down long enough that my ankle actually started to heal. I allowed myself to sit while coaching because I couldn't stand. I still coached. It kind of began the healing process for my ankle. And as I recovered from my hamstring issue, my ankle healed as well. So all during September, when the kids started back to school, I started exercising again, and I was just doing yoga and spin class. And it was the first time I done those. And I didn't really see any results any other way, but I was still trying to work out. And then in November, I went back to trying to do CrossFit. And I just remember being so exhausted after a much modified workout. So modified that I even felt like, why am I even doing this? But I couldn't do any more. But I just remember the fatigue that I would feel after my CrossFit workouts. It was absolutely crippling. My bones hurt. It was the weirdest thing. Like, just even hours after my workout, it would start in my hips and the pain would go down my legs to almost, I would tell Jared, like, I think I have a broken bone in my body, to the point where I quit CrossFit. I only did it for like a month or two, if that, and I just couldn't do it. So that kind of takes me up to meeting and starting my recovery with Dr. Turner. So one of the big things that really helped me was he recommended a Whoop strap, which is similar to just any calorie tracking device, but it is for tracking your recovery. And so for my mindset of go, 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 it really helped me. It gave me a visual aid on like, no, it is okay to recover today. And it really let me see how exhausted my lifestyle was keeping me. So it helped me make some life changes in getting better sleep, tracking my sleep, and pulling back from those hard workout days when that was necessary. That's a pretty big helper in my recovery. And that was recommended to me by Dr. Turner. When I became a patient in late December, early January of 2020, the first thing he did was run some excessive blood tests, and even down to like all my micronutrients and stuff. And so one thing we found was that I was extremely deficient in CoQ10, which is a major player in energy production. And I was extremely deficient in that. Second thing, my body does not properly break down folic acid. And I had known that for a while, but nobody had ever helped me understand that that was a major player as well in energy production, and also how simple the solution to that was. So he also got me on some GABA at nighttime, which is just a natural supplement. And it's really made a difference in helping with my sleep. I already took magnesium, and so I continued on that. So I just want to say that what the first doctor put me on was like over $300 a month. It was, I had to go out to a special pharmacy to get it, a compound pharmacy, really inconvenient. The supplements that Dr. Turner has me on, I really feel like I could be on them for life if I had to do that. My magnesium for a 60-day supply is $12 off Amazon. My homocysteine resist, which I take for my folic acid, my multivitamin for a 60-day supply, it's $17. My GABA that helps me sleep for a 100-day supply, it's $18. And my CoQ10, the most expensive one, and it's a very high dose because I was so deficient. It's a 150-day supply for $80. So that seems more expensive, but that comes out to 50 cents a serving. So these are like, if I had to be on this for the rest of my life to feel great, it's so affordable for the relief that I'm getting from it. So also another thing, he took the time to sit down and talk to me. And not only did he look at the blood work that he ordered, but he asked that I bring in any blood work from the past so that we could compare. And so in early 2019, when I went into the other doctor, she saw my thyroid, and my thyroid results were 2.7 with her. And she's like, oh, that's normal range. That's fine. Well, Dr. Turner explained to me that anywhere between 2.0 and 4.0 is normal, but being up near the 4.0 range is optimal. And so when we looked at my thyroid numbers from the past, when I lived in Texas, which was about 5 or 6 years ago, I had some blood work done that showed that I was at 3.7 at that time. In early 19, when I saw my other doctor, it was 3.2. And then just 1 year later with Dr. Turner, it was down to 2.7. So by looking at the previous blood work, you really saw that there was an issue there, that was dropping pretty rapidly. And that could be a big issue as well for my extreme and unexplainable fatigue. So long story short, he's really taken the time. He's provided simple and inexpensive solutions, like by finding the reason for my fatigue and finding great solutions for that. And then lastly, I just had about 30 days ago or so, I had some regenerative injections done on my hamstring to help my body repair my hamstring. And I have had fantastic results with that. This is the first month after those injections that I really feel athletic again. I really feel like I can sprint, jump, run. I've really started increasing my weight and strength training again. And so, you know, with that being said, I'm sorry that was a little lengthy, but with that being said, I would like to turn it over to Dr. Turner and, you know, let him really share his expertise with us.
Sure. Thank you, Sarah, for spending that time. And can everyone see me? Is the audio coming through all right and such? We're
Yeah,
good?
you're good.
Okay, love it. Okay, love it. Great. Well, I'm so excited to talk with you guys today and to share a little bit. Let me give a basic outline. I would say our talk today will be about maybe 30 to 40 minutes, and then I want to leave 10, 15 minutes for Q&A at the end, okay? And you can unmute yourself at that point because I like that dialogue and I want to be able to interact with you guys a little bit more and share that and answer your questions. What we'll need as we get started here, it would be helpful if you have a notebook. You can highlight specific things that you're very interested in or follow-up questions you want to ask at the end, that kind of thing. As Sarah did mention, I will send out an email summary at the end with all of my main points in it, so you don't have to obsess about writing down every number and such like that. But you will learn better and you will retain better, obviously, if you're writing down the things that capture your imagination, as well as any questions you might have, right? So I do encourage you to keep a notebook. We'll go through, I'll ask some questions as well during the presentation to keep it interactive, and I'll have you respond in chat if you don't mind. So if you can be somewhat near your screen, I'll ask, why don't you throw something up in chat as an answer to my question, and then we'll dialogue on that basis as well, okay? Briefly about myself, everybody likes a story. Everybody's captivated by stories. I think one of the stories from my childhood is that I was always an athletic kid, but I was also a chubby kid, okay? I wore husky-sized clothes. I remember that. And I remember my mom threw a birthday party for me when I was 13 years old, and it was a beach party. We were all going to get in our wetsuits and go down to the beach and go boogie boarding. Well, the problem was I could barely fit in my wetsuit. I had like so many little rolls around my tummy and everything, and I was just trying to jam this wetsuit on, and I was the last one getting into my wetsuit. It was very embarrassing. So, I like to eat cereal late at night. I'd go out and have some Honey Nut Cheerios like 8 or 9 p.m. every night. I'd go to school, I'd have like 2-3 chocolate milks, I'd have a candy bar and all that. And, it just wasn't thinking about my eating. No one was particularly emphasizing nutrition or anything like that. Okay, fast forward, sophomore year in high school, all that changes because I take a health class, okay? Simple public school health class. But this lit up my life. One of the things they had us do was write down everything we ate in a day, okay? And so now all of a sudden I'm realizing, oh my gosh, that chocolate milk's got 20 grams of sugar in it, right? That Snickers bar's got 15 grams of saturated fat. That Honey Nut Cheerios that I ate right before I went to bed, that's going straight onto my belly. There's no way for me to burn that off before I fall asleep, right? This isn't great. And so I started running, I started lifting weights, lost a bunch of weight, was looking really trim, was in great shape, okay? Then fast forward slightly, I had to deal with very practical questions of working out and exercise and even recovering from injury, right? So first question was like, well, I just worked out hard. I know I'm supposed to be taking protein. How much protein should I be taking? Should I buy one of these heavy weight gainer formulas at GNC that costs like $60 and you put 2 scoops in and it's like 900 calories and 150 grams of protein? Is that too much? Is that right on? Guys in muscle magazines are doing that. Is it good for me? So just all this kind of thought process, right? How much is too frequently to work out, right? So I just did chest day the other day. I'm still kind of sore. Should I do it again? How much time should I take off? I just was sprinting up some hills. My Achilles tendon's throbbing. How do I rehab this Achilles, right? I want to get back to running like I was, should I be putting eggs? Should I be eating eggs every day? So all these practical questions about basically me getting in the best, high school teenage shape that I could, parenthesis, mainly to look good for girls, but were driving me and, creating just natural interest. So carry that forward through undergrad. I went to Stanford and I got a chance to be around some amazing athletes. So the year I entered Stanford was actually 1993. And in the 1992 Olympics, Stanford University, if it were a country, it would have come in like 10th place in the world because of all the medals that were won. So I went to an art class. I remember I was looking at this woman, Jenny Thompson, who had just won a gold medal last summer on TV in swimming. And I was like, oh my God, I think I saw her on TV last summer in the Olympics. What a trip, and guys that were had won water polo gold medals, all this stuff. I actually got to meet Tiger Woods when I was at Stanford too. So my interest in athletics and all that just grew. But what was cool now was I was studying human biology. So I was able to overlay all that academic knowledge, right? Really understanding more what was going on in my body, being more precise than about what I was doing. So fast forward, I went to medical school at Harvard, had a great time, again, learned a lot. And along the way, just realized that I wanted to make this my life goal within medicine. You know, why stop learning about nutrition, exercise, recovery, strength, fitness, you know, bringing concepts like stretching, yoga, mind, body, connection, all of that. So I created a career around that for myself. So I was trained in physical medicine and rehabilitation specifically as my field. And then I have overlaid that a lot with an emphasis on sports medicine, with an emphasis on wellness. Just instead of being a sick doctor, I think of myself as more of a wellness doctor. You know, how can I take your current state of wellness also and just maximize it, right? Before waiting for the wheels to fall off something, although we can patch that together, I have a reputation as a fixer, so to speak, amongst other doctors and patients, but even moreover, just wellness optimization, right? How can we get you as healthy and well as possible so things don't go wrong? So that's my mindset. Very much looking forward to this. We're going to have fun, and let's get started here. Okay, let me pull up my PowerPoint. Sarah and I have been practicing all morning, so let's see what happens with this technology. Okay, good. All right, we seeing something? Does it say nutrition for athletic performance and weight loss?
Yeah, we can see it.
Okay, love it. Good. Okay, that's my website. If you want to go check that out, feel free. All right, we're going to move forward. So here's our overview, guys, okay? We're gonna talk about energy sources, first of all, right? You have your carbs and your fats. Well, what about proteins? Well, your body doesn't like to burn proteins for energy because they're too valuable, essentially, okay? Your proteins are making up your skeletal muscle, they're making up your heart, right? They're making up your immune system, they're making up parts of your bone lining. And so your body is not interested in burning protein for energy in any way, shape, or form. Its two preferred fuels are the carbs and the fats. Okay, we're going to talk about that in a lot of depth for you. We're going to talk about calories needed to gain muscle or lose fat, right? So let's say your goal was, I want to lose 1 pound. Okay, well, how many less calories do you need to be taking in than you're burning up to lose a pound? Opposite goal, I want to gain a pound of muscle. Okay, how many more calories do you need to ingest in order to gain a pound of muscle? We're going to go over that. We're going to talk about pre-workout. So pre-workout nutritional strategies, very important. If you just do nothing before your workout other than drink some water, you're selling yourself quite short. Okay, your workout will be of a lower intensity, lower duration. You'll feel more fatigue. You will not be knocking your goals out like you could if you had spent some time and energy just putting together a good, rational, scientific, proven, you know, 2, 3, 4 things to take before your workout that will put you in that heightened state of performance. We'll talk about that. Post-workout nutritional strategies, very important, similar concept. If you just work out hard and then come home and lay down on the couch, you're not going to recover like you should be, right? There are some key concepts to keep in mind to accelerate your recovery. When you've worked out hard, your body's in a state of injury, in a sense. It's in a state of mild injury. You've injured it to some degree. Now, it therefore recovers and becomes stronger through that process, so you build yourself up over time if you're doing things right. But if not, you are basically just lying low and hoping for that body to slowly recover from the injury that was inflicted, and it's going to take you longer than if you had propped up your body with proper supplements, nutrition, sleep, things like that. And that's a lot of what was going on with Sarah. That's a lot of how I was able to help her, right? Getting her recovery right and getting her dialed in there. We're going to talk specifically about protein requirements. This is a very big concept. Even whether you're just dieting, okay, whether you're doing more endurance exercise like running on treadmills, you know, Zumba, step aerobics, or whether you're doing heavy weight training, in any case, your protein is very important for you, and you need a specific protein requirement that would be very important. For example, in the case of dieting, if you are dieting and being a little too extreme about it, your body will start breaking down its own protein, unfortunately, right, to use as energy. You don't want that. You don't want to be losing muscle mass, even if you're dieting, trying to lose weight, presumably, right? So what's the minimal protein intake that you need if you're dieting in order not to lose muscle, to sort of preserve that, right? We'll go over that. There's a number involved in that. All right. Let's talk about carb versus fats. Great subject, supremely important. Two main sources of energy for your body, okay? So our first question, which one does your body prefer? As an energy source, which one does your body prefer? Now, this is a thought question for you. You don't have to put it in the chat or anything, but think about it for a second. And then the answer is, it depends, okay? It depends. It's slightly a trick question, and it depends. So carbs burn quickly, and in that sense, your body prefers them, it likes them, right? That's why you see, you know, guys doing triathlons, women doing, you know, ultra marathons, and they're jamming, you know, carb solutions in their mouth out of little packets and stuff, right? Because in that moment, their body is loving those carbs, and it's helping them create energy. However, carbs have their drawback is in that they don't pack as much energy as fat does, for example, right? So let's say I weighed out a certain amount of carb, which would be 1 gram, right? And a certain amount of fat, which would be 1 gram. So we each have the same amount in a little teaspoon. And I say, here's my gram of carbs, here's my gram of fat. And I burn it up completely within your body, right? How much energy gets created from the amount of carbs versus the same amount of fats, okay? And it's slightly over twice as much is the answer. So 1 gram of carbs will burn to create about 4 calories of energy. 1 gram of fats will burn to create 9 calories of energy, okay? So you could say, in a sense, your body prefers to burn fat because it's gonna get more calories out of that. It's gonna get more energy out of that in the end. The only downside to fat as energy is that it takes a while for them to break down, right? So the chemical processes going on in your cell to take fat and turn it into energy take a little longer than sugar, which is just more immediate, okay? The way I want you to think about this is like a wood-burning stove, okay? I want you to think of the concept of a wood-burning stove. In your cells, the wood-burning stoves are the mitochondria. That's where the energy is created, right? So the so-called powerhouses of your cells. So no matter what carb you eat, it doesn't matter. It all gets stripped down and converted to glucose in the final analysis, and glucose gets dropped into the mitochondria, okay? Fats get stripped down, converted, dropped in the mitochondria for energy as well, right? So that's our wood-burning stove. Now, carbs would be like throwing paper in there, okay? It burns quickly, it's a nice zap of energy, but it's not putting out tons of heat. It's not gonna keep your cabin warm through the night, right? You need some nice, heavy, dense logs to put in there. Let those things burn, let your heat, let your energy come out. And those are more like your fat molecules, okay? So that's a bit of the distinction there. Let's ask a question here. I think this is a fascinating question for us. This is also going to help us understand carbs and fats a little bit. Why can you run at a slow pace for hours but only sprint for seconds? Okay. Why is that? There could be different reasons you're thinking of. I'm gonna break it down to it's about energy, and it's about carbs versus fats and things like that. Okay. Why can you run at a slow pace for hours but only sprint for seconds? The reason has to do with getting oxygen down to the mitochondria. Okay, so like any wood burning stove, you need oxygen. You throw a log in there, you know, you throw your paper in there, you need oxygen in the final analysis. If you're not getting oxygen in the presence of those combustible materials, they will not burn, you will not create energy. Same exact thing in your mitochondria. If you're not getting oxygen into your mitochondria, the carbs and the fats will not combust, they will not burn, you will not get much energy output. Okay, this is why oxygen is necessary for life. Okay, if you're underwater and drowning and you don't get oxygen, you're dead in 30 seconds, 40 seconds, because your brain is requiring that much energy output all the time, therefore that much oxygen intake and consumption all the time. This is why we feel constant need to breathe and we become physiologically desperate without enough oxygen, right? Now, how does the oxygen get from the air down into the mitochondria, the cells where it's needed? It starts with your heart, right? So your heart has to beat strongly at the right pace with sufficient force to circulate the oxygen, get it down where you need, okay? Then it has to be absorbed within the cells and kind of percolate down to the mitochondria and get where it's going. Now, that takes a little bit of time. If you give that enough time to happen, your breath can catch up, your heart can beat strongly, the oxygen can get all into the cells, then you're able to burn the fats and the carbs much more efficiently, much more completely. It takes a little bit of time, but you end up with a gigantic output at the end because you're able to burn them with oxygen. So that's called aerobic metabolism, right? That's where the word aerobics comes from. I'm doing aerobics. That means basically you're breathing oxygen, you're trying to get the oxygen into your cells. That's aerobic metabolism. And you can get huge, steady outputs of energy that way. Fantastic. So that's you jogging 5 miles. Okay. What about you sprinting uphill or doing hard interval training like burpees or something like that, right? When you're sprinting at that point, your body is not having enough time to deliver oxygen completely to your mitochondria. It's not, right? Your heart rate's hit its max, your breath rate's hit its max, blood's circulating everywhere, but you are demanding more energy at a faster pace than the oxygen can get down to your cells to supply. So why don't you just, how do you have even energy at that point? And that's because there's a small sort of spin-off subsidiary way of creating energy in your cells called anaerobic metabolism, right? Anaerobic meaning no oxygen required. That's something called glycolysis. So in the absence of oxygen, you can create energy, but it's for a short period of time, and the amount of energy is way, way less. So just to give you an example, if you had sufficient oxygen available and you were able to burn your carbs and your fats in the presence of oxygen, you'd put out, let's say, 200 molecules of ATP, 200 units of cellular energy. If you don't have enough oxygen, you're relying purely on anaerobic metabolic processes, couple little cellular reactions that you have, you're going to put out maybe 8 to 10 units of ATP. So your energy production falls off from 200 to 8 to 10 if there's not enough oxygen. Okay, so consequently, you can do that for 10 seconds, 15 seconds, 30 seconds. Obviously, if you're in shape, you can do it a little longer, but very quickly your energy level just falls off. All right, because that oxygen is so important. Let's talk about maximal fat burning for a second. So if you are doing exercise, there's this question of what intensity is going to burn the most fat, right? As I said, the fat requires oxygen to burn. And so if you're being too intense, you don't have time for oxygen to get there. You're not able to burn fat. Your energy production will start to fall off. It's individualized between people, and Sarah and Jared actually have some testing that can be done on this to tell you exactly where your best fat burning range is. If you go too hard, you're burning up mainly carbs in anaerobic capacity, and you're not going to be able to last too long. Whereas if you're going under that, you're at a more slow burn with oxygen, burning up all your fats, burning up your carbs completely, and you'll be able to go longer. So purely from a weight loss viewpoint, max fat burning can be assessed individually and determined. As a rule of thumb though, for typically people, it's going to end up between 60 to 80 of your max heart rate. Okay, FYI. Let's talk about the logic of low carb diets for a second. Okay, why are low carb diets helpful for weight loss? And they are. And that's because these two parallel systems. On the one hand, your body can burn carbs or it can burn fats. Now, if you give it tons of carbs, what does it do with the fat burning system? It sort of puts that in hibernation, okay? It will literally change the concentrations of certain enzymes that were being used to burn the fats. It'll shut those down, kind of hit the dimmer switch on those, and it'll ramp up all the things to burn carbs. Well, fair enough, except that you're now not burning much fat. You're therefore storing it, you're holding onto it, right? And if weight loss is your goal, this is counterproductive. So on the other hand, if you starve your body of carbs, all the enzymes are so-called upregulated, basically kicked in, that constitute your fat burning system. And now your fat burning's ramped up, the fat cells are releasing, biochemically your body's adapted, and it's in a strong fat burning zone, which is great. So that's how low carb diets help you lose weight. The only downside to the low carb diets is sometimes your energy level will be a little off. It's not as much, especially for like say hard exercise. So I found when I was on one, for example, that I wasn't able to get through my workouts quite like I wanted to. My body was just sort of fatiguing out. And so you do need some of those carbs for quick energy, like right before or right during your workout. If you try to just stay too low carb, you will in general feel, you'll feel it. Also, you tend to be a little grumpy and irritable if you get too low carb, but that's how they work. Okay, this is a chance for you to hit something here in chat. Okay, why don't you give a chat response or write something in your notebook at the very least. Name a bad fat. We're talking about carbs versus fats. So we're gonna play a little game called good cop, bad cop. Okay, let's start with bad. Name a bad fat. Okay, nice. Somebody says trans fat. Nice, very much. Saturated fat. Yes, very true. Okay. Yep. Those are two bad players. For time's sake, we won't get into it the whole history of those, but yes, those are two bad fats. Let's put an example on that. Okay. Your trans fats typically have been in your processed baked goods, like your donuts, your cookies, your pastries, things like that, right? Now, they were banned essentially now several years ago. So most products, you'll look at the trans fat and it should say 0. So that's a public health win in a major way. Your saturated fats are essentially those fats that are solid at room temperature. So your prototypical saturated fat would be butter, okay? Something like that, butter, lard, Crisco, even coconut oil, it's a saturated fat. So those are your saturated fats. We'll come back to coconut oil in a second. It's a little bit controversial, but those are bad fats in general. Why? Because they boost LDL levels. Number one, that's your bad cholesterol. You don't want high levels of LDL circulating around. It will promote basically adherence to the arteries, so-called hardening of the arteries, plaque, all that stuff inside your arteries if you have too much LDL cholesterol circulating. So that's why doctors check that. That's why there's a lot of emphasis about having good cholesterol versus bad cholesterol levels. Trans fat or saturated fats, besides that though, they are inflammatory and they also produce some negative changes in your GI flora. So if you've heard of the concept of gastrointestinal flora, right, your microbiome, saturated fats produce negative changes on the microbiome. You can look that up and read more about that if you want. Okay. Why don't you name a good fat, okay? What would be a good fat then? Okay, cool. Polyunsaturated. Someone said, very nice. Yep. 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 So your mono or your polyunsaturated fats are your good fats. Those are typically vegetable based. So to throw an example on that, we're talking like olive oil, okay? Or to throw another example on, say, an avocado or nuts or fish, right? Those are your good fats there. Yep, good. Let's name a bad carb. What's a bad carb? Okay, sugar, exactly. Table sugar, for example. Yeah, absolutely. So sugar would be the prototypical bad carb. It does provide a boost of quick energy. Okay, that's really the only positive thing it does. It actually leaches certain nutrients out of your body. It's inflammatory. It's not healthy for the brain. It can promote bad cholesterol levels. It does a whole bunch of nasty stuff, right? So thankfully, there's been a lot of awareness of sugar lately. Also, highly processed carbs aren't good as well because they convert quickly to sugar. All carbs ultimately convert to sugar, but whether they do it quickly or slowly is a big difference, right? Pure sugar in your mouth already is sugar. Corn flakes, sorry, I hate to break it to you, but that quickly becomes sugar. Those are highly processed. Your body breaks that down. It's a big sugar spike pretty quickly. Okay, old-fashioned oatmeal, that's a good carb. You know, that's going to take a while. That's going to slowly convert over to blood sugar over like an hour or two instead of over 2 minutes, right? So that conversion rate, how quickly it hits your body with a dump of sugar is a big important concept, also known as glycemic index. So bad carbs are things that convert quickly to sugar. So your chips, your cookies, your cold cereals for the most part, white bread, things like that, white rice. Okay. Moving on, name a good carb. I'll just name a couple here just for timing's sake so we can move quickly through this. But your good carbs, to me, your prototypical good carb is old-fashioned oatmeal. Just look at oatmeal and imagine that, right? That's your prototypical good carb. So something dense, something hearty, like whole grain bread that's really dense and has some nuts and seeds in it, that would be a great carb, right? Lentils, beans, things like that. Maybe whole grain pasta, something like that. Something that's dense and it's meaty. Somebody said quinoa, great point, love it. Quinoa, yep. Yep, that's a good carb. Boiled sweet potatoes, by the way, have kind of come out to be a good carb and are pretty tasty. All right, we're gonna move forward. Let's talk about calories, vitally important. Let's ask the most basic calorie question if we need to gain muscle or lose weight, right? And the most basic one is how many calories do you burn every day? This is important. It comes down to biochemistry. It comes down to your system. It comes down to what's going on, right? There are different ways to estimate this. I've provided a website here that I'll also put in my summary. This is a very, very good website. I'm going to pull it up real quick for you and just show you what that will look like. Hold on one second here. Okay, so if you go to that website, you'll see something like this. It's an online calculator, verywellfit.com, and it'll ask you a few questions. Are you male, female, age, height, your current weight, and then how active you are, right? And so there are some underlying scientific formulas that very accurately predict how many calories you will burn in a given day based on your activity level and these intrinsic factors about weight, height, and gender. Okay. So that's very helpful. You need to know that as a baseline. If you want your body weight to move up or down, you have to have a basic sense of how many calories you're burning every day. Okay, so let's ask a question. Let's say you want to lose a pound of fat, right? You've gone to the website, you know how many calories you're burning roughly, speaking, every day. If you have a high quality fitness tracker or something, that can give you a very accurate count too, so that's nice. And now you want to lose a pound of fat. So how much less, right, total calories do you need to take in order to burn that pound of fat, right? In order to ask your body to utilize and release that pound of stored fat that it has around your midsection or your thighs or wherever, right? We know we got to come in less than that number. How much less? There's a number involved in that too, which you should probably know if you're trying to lose weight, right? That magic number is 3,500, okay? So to lose fat, you have to take in overall 3,500 less calories, and your body will therefore have burned up a pound of fat to make up for that difference, okay? Now, over what period of time you do this is up to you, but typically to be sustainable and not too stressful on your body, people aim for maybe 500 calories less per day. That's a nice concept. If you aim for 500 calories less per day, then you're gonna get to 3,500 in 7 days. And so that's a pound a week. So that's why you often hear people talk about, well, a pound a week of weight loss is nice, sustainable, a good concept, something like that. Obviously you could go, 2 days in a row eating nothing and you're still down maybe 3,500 or something like that. That's not so healthy on your body, right? So if you're aiming for basically about negative 500 a day, you'll lose a pound a week. And that's mentally and physically a good path to be on, okay? Let's ask the opposite question. Let's say we want to gain some weight, we want to gain some lean muscle. How many more calories do you need to consume in order to add 1 pound of muscle? Let me just ask this question in a different way and put a little context on it, right? So what happens a lot is people are overtraining and they're not making gains in their muscle because they're working out, let's say, twice a day, and they're eating 4 healthy meals, but those meals aren't substantial enough in terms of either calories or protein, right? So let's say based on your workouts and your calculator that you went to, you're burning 3,000 total calories a day. We know we have to come in over that number if you expect to gain muscle. But when you add up what you're eating, well, I did intermittent fasting, so I didn't eat breakfast. And for lunch, I had a kale salad and, a couple pieces of tuna. I had a little mid-afternoon snack of a protein drink, Premier Protein from Costco, had 180 calories. For dinner, I had a little bit of pasta and a side salad and, some dark chocolate, okay, for dessert, right? But if you do that math, you're at like 2,700 calories. You didn't go north of 300, you're not going to gain muscle. There's no chemistry to do that for you. You can't get something out of nothing, right? So it's not uncommon that people are overtraining, burning up tons of energy and under eating, especially under intake of protein, and therefore you will not gain a muscle. So the exact number is unclear. It's a little more difficult with the biochemistry. I can give you an exact number for fat loss, 3,500. We just said that. Muscle gain, it's a little different, right? It's not quite so simple. And if somebody finds this out, please let me know. But in all my research, looking through different websites, articles, and stuff like that, they haven't been able to put an exact number on it. So we have more of an estimate, more of a rule of thumb concept here, okay? And that's about 300 extra calories per day. So if you go about 300 extra calories per day, knowing what you are burning in total, plus 300, that's a safe zone where your body can incorporate that and slowly build up muscle. And it's not so much more that you're just packing on fat in the process, right? So this is going to keep you in a predominantly lean gaining zone right there, 300 extra a day. Okay. Let's switch. All right. So we talked about calories and fat as energy sources. We talked a little bit about calorie intake for gaining muscle or calorie intake for losing fat. Let's switch gears now to a totally different topic. We're going to talk about pre-workout and really having the best workout possible. And then we're going to talk about post-workout and putting your body in the best recovery state possible. Okay, so that's where we're going right now. So pre-workout, your key to performance. How do you prep your body for maximal performance? All right, it's a good question. Can it be done? Absolutely. Every single Olympic athlete has a serious pre-workout regimen that's not just their stretching and foam rolling and dynamic warm-ups. It's also, I guaranteed, ingestion of certain legal substances, you know, within a couple hours leading up to their event. Okay, this is an important concept. So protein. So interesting enough, protein as a pre-workout is important. They've shown that you will have better recovery, better strength gains if you actually take a little bit of protein in before your workout. So a good pre-workout drink, for example, will have some protein in it, maybe 20 to 30 grams. Okay. Caffeine, very interesting, is an awesome pre-workout. Caffeine does some great things for your body metabolically when you're exercising. First thing is it increases your heart's, the strength of the beat of your heart actually, and what we call the cardiac output, how much blood is outputted by your heart, because it's beating stronger, because this caffeine ramps up your sympathetic nervous system. Everything's kind of kicked into gear. That's your fight or flight nervous system. So your heart's beating stronger, you're breathing faster, your blood pressure is raised, and all of that will promote energy output in any given period of time. Okay. Moreover, caffeine also promotes fat breakdown. So you're sending cellular signals at that moment after ingesting caffeine. Hey, break down fat molecules. So your body's releasing fat molecules into circulation. And so now we have some heavy hitters to produce energy if we can just get enough oxygen there during our workout. By the way, caffeine is I would call it the original performance enhancing drug. Okay. It's on banned substances list. It's tested for in every athletic event. It's flat out on banned substances list as much as steroids or anything else, because it is a performance enhancing drug. They've done these studies. You know, you can take someone and have them run a 1600 meter race or something like that, and you give them 400 milligrams of caffeine first, they'll knock 5-6 seconds off their time, something like that. It's notable. It's enough to win races and provide an advantage. Okay. So caffeine is a performance enhancing drug. No doubt about that. Have you guys heard of nitric oxide, or the concept of nitric oxide, or NO? Okay. Perhaps you have. Perhaps you have. This is really interesting concept. Nitric oxide is a molecule that promotes dilation of your arteries and your veins, right? That's extremely helpful. Obviously, as you're working out, let's just talk about oxygen delivery, right? We need more oxygen to all our cells so we can create the most amount of energy. How are we going to get it there? It comes through our bloodstream. How are we going to get it there? It comes through dilating those blood vessels. So the more dilated you can get with your arteries or your blood vessels, as well as the stronger your heart's pumping, the more oxygen is delivered. Okay, nitric oxide is a potent dilator of the arteries and the veins in your body. This was discovered in the late 90s, and the gentleman who did it actually won a Nobel Prize in medicine for his role in nitric oxide. Okay, why did we care about it in medicine? Because this has roles in if you have heart disease, right? So let's say your heart's not getting enough blood flow from itself. Your heart pumps, but then it also recirculates back on itself. Those are called the coronary arteries, right? So let's say your coronary arteries don't dilate enough, then your heart itself, which is a muscle, is not getting enough oxygen, can't do its job efficiently, and then the whole rest of the body suffers, right? So if we could dilate the heart arteries, which are called the coronary arteries, that would be a great thing in medicine for someone who has heart disease. And that's where nitric oxide came from as a concept. Interestingly enough, they were giving people some medications to help promote nitric oxide in their bodies to help create this dilation. And some of the guys were coming back saying, wow, I'm having an erection that won't quit. And as a side effect of this, okay, and they got on that a little bit more and realized, well, this is also dilating, you know, arteries and veins in other parts of the body. And then they decided to market that not so much to heart patients, but more for erectile dysfunction and such. And that became Viagra. Okay, so Viagra is nothing but a big way to boost nitric oxide in certain parts of the body. It also will boost it in the heart, by the way, interestingly enough. So pre-workout ingredients, sometimes we'll say something like L-arginine or citrulline, and those are both good. Those basically both boost nitric oxide levels. Okay. Beets or beetroot juice, if you've heard of that, that's also very good with boosting nitric oxide. So a lot of the Olympic athletes, for example, were ingesting beetroot juice, 20, 30 minutes before their workout and getting a whole bunch of dilation and therefore better oxygen delivery, better energy output for their workouts. Creatine, you probably have heard of this if you've been around workouts and supplements for a while and such like that. Creatine helps with a number of things, but among them, it helps with a quick generation of energy. So not that aerobic part that I was talking about, but more the anaerobic, the lack of oxygen, cellular process in your body. Creatine can help with that, and it can serve to help replenish your energy stores quickly. So it's helpful for bursts of energy during workouts. It also does some other good things for your body too. It's actually one of the safest and one of the most potent ways to boost performance, boost even lean muscle mass. They've given creatine to older people who have done no exercise, and they'll gain lean muscle mass just from that. Okay, it's really interesting. It's worth checking out if you're highly motivated. Okay. The last thing, most people have not heard of this as a pre-workout, but it's extremely important. This is beta-alanine. This is a serious performing enhancing substance, legal, but it just shows you the power of nutrition. Beta-alanine is 1/2 of something called carnosine. So carnosine has one beta-alanine molecule tied together with one histidine molecule. And these are both different little amino acids, but this joins together, and that joined together molecule is called carnosine. Typically, people aren't getting enough beta-alanine. Your body can make this naturally, but they're lacking beta-alanine. So if you give just beta-alanine, it'll come up with the histidine, you'll get enough carnosine. Fair enough. Or you could take carnosine itself directly. It kind of doesn't matter. There tends to be a lot more research about beta-alanine if you want to read about it. I won't camp out on this concept too much, but let's just say it's very potent for workout performance. It actually stimulates the growth of new mitochondria in your body. It increases things like your VO2 max, if that is a concept that you're familiar with. You can give someone sufficient beta-alanine and their VO2 max will go up immediately. Okay. Let's talk about post-workout, and this gets into recovery. Okay, and then we're going to finish up after this, just going back on protein and revisiting that concept. All right, and then we'll go to our Q&A. So post-workout, the key concept is you need some protein immediately after your workout, along with some carbs to help replenish what's been depleted. Fair enough, makes sense. This can be kind of hard sometimes, right? Like sometimes you're working out and you're in a rush, you got to come home, you might have to cook dinner, you might have to go back to the office, the kids might be misbehaving and whatnot, right? But this really behooves you then to plan ahead a little bit, bring that workout shake to the gym or have a Premier Protein sitting in your car or something like that. The concept when you've worked out hard, as I said, is you've induced some injury to your body. For example, I was surprised to find this out, but in different studies within the scientific literature, they can check markers of DNA damage, typically through urine metabolites, and they can tell, are you having damage to your DNA or not? After a hard workout, there are signs of DNA damage. Those urine markers of DNA damage pop up after a hard workout, and they stay that way for a while, then they come back down. Okay, so there's damage going on to your body, even at the level of the DNA. Now we have to repair that. This is where your protein comes in. This is where your carbs come in. Just for a second to talk about overtraining and workout recovery, right? Let's ask the question, you work out hard and you're sore. Why are you sore? Why are you sore after a hard workout? And the answer is there's been trauma to the muscles. There's actually been small micro tears. There are small micro tears to the muscles that creates a little bit of inflammation, and that creates that soreness. I mean, inflammation is a concept you're familiar with just from being sick, right? When you have the flu, why do you feel achy and why do your muscles hurt if someone pushes on you or something like that? It's because there's inflammation there in those muscles. In a workout, similarly, there's inflammation on the basis of small micro tears. Well, those tears have to heal, they have to repair, okay? Quick question, this is kind of a fun fact. Let's say you do a heavy leg day or a lot of sprints uphill, burpees, something like that, box jumps, and your thighs, your glutes are really sore, okay? In those first couple of days, there's damage to the muscles, there's inflammation, there's soreness. We know that your legs aren't at 100% strength, right? If you had to go back that next day and do the same workout, you couldn't do it. You don't have the strength. So your strength's actually dropped off, right? And damage has increased. Now, let's ask the question, how long do you have to wait, assuming you're doing good recovery and all that stuff, until your strength level actually comes back up and you can do the same workout or even slightly more than you just did, right? Is it like a day after, 2 days after, 2 weeks after, right? Like how long? That's a key concept. Otherwise, you're overtraining. You're not reaching plateaus every time. You're kind of coming in at the same or even less because your muscles haven't recovered maximally, right? Now, this varies slightly depending on what muscle group we're talking about, but in the research studies, when they do that, a good rule of thumb is 7 days, okay? 7 days. It's a little longer for big muscles like glutes, hammies, lats. It's a little bit shorter for like your arms, your abs, something like that. But 7 days. So where they do these studies, they'll have someone, let's say, lift weights with their bicep, and they'll watch every day and they'll measure out when does this person actually get back to lifting the same weight they were way back on day one or even better, right? And they'll do that for these different muscle groups. And the answer is 7 days. Now that's kind of striking, right? So if you are training so hard that you're sore, you need to wait 7 days before you hit that muscle again, or else you haven't allowed it to fully recover, okay? That's why on a lot of the heavy lifting programs, like again, you think about Gold's Gym, think about your bodybuilding magazines and all that stuff, they'll only train heavy on a body part once a week. That's where that concept's coming from. It's gonna take 7 days for that muscle group to get back to full strength. Now, what if you're training more than once a week on a body part? Let's say you're doing box jumps every day or every other day. The answer to that question is that's okay as long as you're not getting sore, right? As long as that frequency of workout is underneath that zone where it's not creating so much inflammation, so much muscle damage, AKA you're not getting so sore. If you can do it and not feel so sore the next day, you don't have to wait a week. If you do something, you can go jog every day. If you're not getting sore the next day, it's not a problem. So that's the key concept. If you've hit it so hard that you're sore, you need to wait a week or else you're not back at maximal recovery. If you're hitting it to whatever level and you're not sore the next day, keep rolling, you're doing fine, okay? So your protein and carbs is key for your recovery, and also pretty quickly within 30 minutes. After you've worked out hard, you're at a heightened state of your body's receptivity, let's just say, and availability to replenish itself. It's sort of craving and looking for and needing, you know, those carbs, those proteins to start knitting together the little muscle fiber injuries and such like that. So pretty quickly within your workout, there's a window, as they call it, of 30 minutes. Adequate sleep, hugely important. This is something that I went over with Sarah. This is probably one of the most fundamental reasons she was able to recover better and start feeling more on her game, is getting her sleep right. If you want to read further, the concept is slow wave sleep. Okay, slow wave sleep. That's the most important phase of sleep. It's very restorative. That's where human growth hormone is released. Growth hormone helps repair all of your damaged tissues. It helps build new muscle. It's very reparative, very restorative for your body. Okay, and post-workout, also the concept of something anti-inflammatory. I think one of our participants this morning mentioned like taking ibuprofen after her workout stuff. That's not a bad concept, okay? You will reduce that soreness and you'll hasten your recovery if you take something that's anti-inflammatory. Could be ibuprofen, could be Aleve, could be fish oil, could be curcumin, turmeric, okay? Proteolytic enzymes, I'm a big fan of those. I take those sometimes. So the concept is a little inflammation after workout is necessary. It's unavoidable. It's even good, if you will, in quotes, because it does stimulate some growth and some healing in your body, but too much is not good. So like most things, it's a balance in the body, right? So for example, if you see a professional basketball player go to the sidelines, he's putting ice on his knee typically. Why is he putting ice on his knee? Because ice will reduce the blood flow and it will reduce inflammation that happens, right? You don't want too much inflammation to happen or you're going to have a ton of soreness and swelling and stuff like that. It's going to persist for days. So that's why all professional sports players, they're putting ice on all these body parts. They're trying to reduce inflammation right after their workout. So your body needs some inflammation, but it's going to get that on its own. Trust me, you don't have to worry too much about that. So it's more like we're trying to bring down that response. We don't want to be too exuberant so that you can hasten that recovery and not be sore for 2-3 days, whereas you otherwise might be sore only for one, something like that. That's your anti-inflammatories. Okay. We're going to talk about protein requirements here for a couple slides, and then we'll be done and we'll take some questions from our audience this morning. All right. So everything you need to know about protein. I want to camp out on this for a second because it's so important. As I said, whether you're dieting, whether you're doing endurance exercise, or whether you're doing heavy lifting, it doesn't matter. Your protein intake is vitally important. You need to know that number. There's really only two numbers that I'm going to ask you to know. One of them is how many total calories you burn in a day by going to that website or something very similar to that. And number two, how many grams of protein you need every day. Those are the two numbers I'm going to ask you to actually know for yourself personally so that you can treat your body right as far as athletic performance and weight loss. Okay, so here's the first concept. To me, this was kind of radical when I learned this. Something called remodeling is going on. So in other words, every day, your muscles are being broken down to a level, and they're also being rebuilt to a level. So there's this ongoing remodeling of your muscles. And I'm not talking injury, I'm not talking working out, just living life, being a regular Joe. There's this ongoing breakdown and repair process going on in all your muscles. That's not necessarily a bad thing. It's just turnover, right? It's just physiologic turnover, kind of like you're shedding skin cells and hair every day and new ones are coming up. So your muscle proteins are in this constant state of remodeling. 1 to 2% every day get turned over. Okay, interesting. What does that mean though? That means in 90 days, roughly, okay, because 1 to 2% average, let's just crank that up by 90 to get it to 100%. That means in 90 days, every muscle protein in your body is brand new. It's brand new. Another way of saying that is right now, you have your muscles, you have a completely brand new muscle suit, okay, than you had 90 days ago. Your bicep muscle is all completely new within the last 90 days. Your hammy, your quad, your glute, I don't care what muscle you're talking about, you have a completely new, if you imagine it like a bodysuit of armor or a wetsuit, you got a completely new muscle suit than you had 90 days ago because there's this constant remodeling going on. That's kind of radical in my mind. Now, what if you're having this constant remodeling, you're not giving your body enough protein or enough high quality protein? Then in 90 days, your muscle suit is decrepit. It's not up to par, you know, from where you want it to be, obviously, right? So your recovery, your protein intake, your strength training, all of that has work together to create an entirely new muscle system for you within the last 90 days. You're only as good as your last 90 days worth of nutrition and recovery and strength training. Okay? Pretty striking. Why is it so important for performance? Well, protein, first of all, stimulates muscle synthesis. So let's just ask this question. Is it possible to have someone do no exercise, zero? They sit in a chair, they come in, and I give them a certain amount of protein every day, you know, through an IV or through some whey protein, and does it do anything for the muscles? Will they gain muscle just on that basis? The answer is yes, they actually will. So dietary protein intake all by itself is a molecular signal in your body for those muscle cells to grow, to develop. You actually start to put on muscle just by getting enough protein, even if you did nothing else. Okay, cool, kind of like a little hack. That sounds good to me. Okay. Furthermore, protein stimulates growth hormone release. Okay. So growth hormone is one of the abused anabolic performance enhancing drugs because it promotes protein synthesis itself, but it's also triggered by protein intake. Okay. So it's a way that your body has like a mechanism. Oh, more protein's coming in. I'm going to utilize that. More growth hormone will get secreted from my brain at night during slow wave sleep. And all of a sudden I'm building up muscle more than I was before. So protein all by itself will stimulate growth hormone release. That's a good thing. And then this word satiety, that basically means how full, how satisfied you feel after a meal, right? So if you have a meal with a low protein intake, let's just say some rice and, you know, some soy sauce and some like grilled vegetables on top of it, that's going to be less filling than if you had a protein bar. Guaranteed. Okay. Protein promotes a sense of fullness after a meal. So that's helpful, particularly with dieting. If you want to keep the protein intake cranked up so that you're not breaking down your muscle in your dieting process, but also you want to keep the protein intake cranked up because you'll feel more full, you'll feel more satisfied on less food than otherwise. All right. How much protein in a day? So here's your key number that I was telling you about. Okay. If you are just sedentary, this is not any of us typically. I mean, here we are, you know, athletic gym, you know, Sarah, you know, Jared, you guys work out and all that. So this is not you, it's a little bit more elementary concept. But if you're just sedentary, it's about 0.8 grams per kilogram. And where we really kick in is endurance trainings. or strength training. So if you're endurance training, that means you're primarily doing aerobic stuff. You know, you're running, you're on the rowing machine, you're doing, you know, Zumba, step aerobics, all that big cardio, basically. You're doing a lot of cardio predominance. Your need is about 1.5 grams per kilogram of body weight. Also dieting, that's where dieting comes into. If you're dieting pretty seriously and trying to lose fat, you need to keep your protein intake up around 1.5 grams per kg. Otherwise, you will start to lose some muscle mass. Okay. Further level then is strength training. So let's say you're doing heavy strength training, like 3 days a week. You're really trying to put on muscle and all that bit. It needs to get cranked up. So that's more where the science would justify 1.7 grams per kg, maybe slightly higher. The most I've ever seen scientifically proven would be like up to 2. Okay, like say 1.7 to 2 grams per kg of body weight. So do that math. What's interesting is there's a whole lot of excess protein intake going on amongst certain people. For example, I was just looking online, and there's like blogs and fitness advisors and stuff talk about like calculating your macros, right? And they're like, okay, you got to get 3,000 total calories a day, and 35% of that needs to come from protein. And so when you do all this math, then they'll come up with a protein intake of like 250 grams, let's say, a day, right, of your body weight. But that's actually more than you can even physiologically absorb, right? So this is from the physiological absorption aspect. You know, how much can you actually utilize based on your level of activity and breakdown that's going on. Okay, how much at once is also an interesting concept. This is one of my original sports medicine concepts, right? Dating back to high school. Okay, I just worked out. I'm trying to look good for the girls. You know, I did a whole bunch of chest and arms and shoulders today. And I know I need to recover, and I'm going to try to get something right away within 30 minutes, but how much, right? Do I need 30 grams of protein, or do I need like my 85 grams of protein, my expensive shake from, you know, GNC? Okay, and the answer comes down to whether you're drinking something like liquid and quick, or whether you are eating an entire meal, right? Something liquid and quick, your body can absorb about 30 grams. That's about its max at once. So that's why your typical protein drinks, let's say your Premiers or your Orgains, something like that, some kind of liquid protein, they're going to have, let's say, 20 to 30 grams in them typically. Okay, or one serving of your whey protein concentrate or your pea protein, something like that, it's going to be up in the 20-30 gram region range. There's a reason for that, right? That's the most that you can absorb just all at once quickly from liquid. Otherwise, your body just can't utilize that. It's getting washed out. On the other hand, if you eat a meal, that's a little different. You can get away with a higher protein intake because that breaks down more slowly. Again, so imagine you're eating a steak, right? That steak's not hitting your body in the same way that a shake of whey protein is, right? Not at all. That's slowly being digested, absorbed, and now it's slowly entering your body's bloodstream and circulation over the next 3, 4, 5, even 6 hours after you've eaten that steak. They've shown you're still utilizing that protein. And so you can get away with more at once because it's more slowly distributed, therefore, into your body. And again, they've done these studies where they compared like 70 grams after meal versus 30 versus 40 versus 100 and all this stuff. And they kind of have come, it's changing, you know, it changes because science is always changing, but it kind of comes down to like around 70 grams is the most that you'd want to pack into a meal. That's not, beyond that, it's just not being utilized well. Okay, so this is my last slide. We're summarizing right now, okay? So there's 2 numbers you need to know. You need to know how many calories you burn each day, right? And you need to know your daily protein intake goal from that last slide, right? Since you're working out or dieting, you're going to either be at 1.5 or 1.7 to 2.0, something like that, if you're doing heavy strength training. Okay, those are your 2 key numbers that you need to know if you want to do this right, okay? Beyond that, let's take a moment. You can unmute yourself if you'd like. I think that would be cool. I think that's a little easier way. You can throw something up in chat if you want as well, but let's have a minute then for a question and answer time. I'm happy to do that. And love to hear if you have any thoughts or questions about things.
For those of us that work out at 5 a.m., how are we supposed to get a pre-workout product in our bodies?
Good point. It's a little tough. It's probably a question of taking it as you're driving to the gym. Even maybe taking it when you're at the gym, you know, sort of like this, the beginning of your workout.
And I do a pre-workout on the way to the gym, but what is, I guess, your recommendation to get all that in 10 minutes?
I mean, in an ideal world, I would say it's about 30 minutes before. Like say the caffeine, for example, that's not instantaneous, right? That needs to be, that's a pill. It's going to sit in your GI tract. It needs to be broken down, needs to be uptaken into the cells and such like that. So for the caffeine, that's like 45 to 30 minutes before that's going to kick in totally. So your ideal pre-workout is maybe around 30 minutes ahead of time. But it's not all or nothing, right? So even if you're just taking that at the beginning of your workout, 30 minutes into your workout, you're getting that nice boost as if it had been a pre-workout. You see what I mean? So that's still not bad. If you just take something at the beginning of your workout, the caffeine, the beta-alanine, the creatine, all that stuff, you know, a solid 20 to 30 minutes now into your workout, you'll be feeling the benefits of that with the nitric oxide, the vasodilation, and all that stuff.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
So you were mentioning stuff about protein in your meals. You know, we need to calculate how much protein we need. How much carbs should we include with our meals, and fat? Is there like a percentage, or, you know, of course I'd like to lose weight, but I don't want to lose too much muscle. I want to be able to keep that going.
Yeah. Yep. It's a great question. I like to keep things simple. And the way to keep it simple is you just keep track of two numbers, your total calories and your protein. And then you let everything else fall into place. Yep. You just let everything fall into place. So again, let's say your goal was you want to lose weight. Okay. First off, how many calories total are you burning a day? You go to that website, you find out, let's say your number is 2,500. Okay. Total calories based on your activity level, age, height, all that stuff. So you know you're at 2,500. And then based on what I said, you want a nice slow weight loss, is steady. So you're trying to go down 500 a day, right? So now you're aiming for 2,000. Okay. So you just keep track in your mind. I only want you to keep track of two numbers. I keep it simple. So you're just keeping track. Okay, I'm basically going to eat 2,000 calories today, right? I got to keep roughly track of that. You know, you got to know, did you have a drink at Starbucks? Was that 400 calories, or was it some decaf, you know, special non-fat thing that had only 80 calories in it, right? That's a big difference. You got to just roughly keep track of that. So if you're trying to get to 2,000, you're just thinking, okay, I'm keeping track of my calories. I'm going to be right at 2,000. And I want to get enough protein so that as I'm dieting, I'm not losing my muscles, right? And that's your 1.5 grams per kilogram body weight.
Okay.
Just keep track. Yep. Just keep track of those two numbers, and then let the carbs fall where they may, let the fats fall where they may. This is how I've always done it personally. It's a lot simpler. And, you know, just make sure the fats are healthy and the carbs are basically healthy. And that's why we talk about what those each were. See what I mean?
And you mentioned also about 0.8 grams of protein to 1.5. So working out with Sarah, I do that whenever I can. But I also have a very sedentary job where I do try to get up and walk around, and I do housework when I get home and yard work. Would that be considered sedentary still, or would?
You know, that's probably slightly north of sedentary. You know, if you're doing, you know, your housework, your gardening house, that's not sedentary. Sedentary is your office job, and you kind of come home and you just chill in the evening. You know, that's your sedentary lifestyle. So you're slightly north of that. Any other questions?
I have a question, Dr. Turner, if nobody else has any. So most of these women work out first thing in the morning, like 5 a.m. And I get asked a lot, you know, what should I eat? What's too much? I'm in a rush. As far as food in your pre-workout, you didn't really necessarily recommend anything. So I'm thinking of myself, if I put like some collagen powder for protein into my morning coffee. I found some really good tasting sources just off Amazon. And then took my supplements, the L-arginine. I could add some creatine into my coffee, and the beta-alanine, which I could find all supplements off of Amazon. Would that be a good pre-workout combination? I mean, do you recommend all of what you recommended at once? and no food? Or do you think that there should be, you know, a half a banana or a small thing of yogurt, you know, something like that?
Yeah, good point. So the first question is, all of what I recommended at once or just parts? It depends on how far you want to take it, right? It's kind of like martial arts. There's all these belts and all these levels, right? I personally am kind of an overachiever, and I want to do everything, and I want to be like in top shape, and I'm a striver, and I'm always trying to self-improve. Okay? So for me, I do all of them at once every time I work out, for the most part. That's my intention, right? I like stay up on my beta alanine. I reorder that stuff on Amazon. Like, I stay on my game because that's just who I am, and I want to be that way. So you don't have to, you're still going to get some benefit if you just, let's say, caffeine and some L-arginine or something like that. But yeah, to max your benefit, you do all of that. Adding a little bit of food, that's not necessarily a bad concept. I didn't touch on that. That kind of gets into, you're going to need some carbs to kind of get you for the sprinting and the anaerobic type aspects of your workout, right? Like the hard stuff. So that's where, you know, your little half a banana or your yogurt or something that or your Gatorade, let's just say, as a typical example from back in the day, although it has too much sugar, I think, for people typically, but that's your concepts. Like, you're putting a little carb in your pre-workout or during your workout for those hard times when you're doing anaerobic stuff, right? Your high intensity aspects. So that's okay. That's not bad. Just realize though, that if you are eating a lot of food, like in your pre-workout, then you're taking away that's calories you're putting in there. So you're taking away also from your fat burning and maybe your weight loss goals, right? Like, if you're coming in there with this hearty pre-workout, like I ate a bowl of oatmeal and, you know, a bar on the way over, and I have this drink that's got like 200 calories in it, you're hitting yourself with like 700 calories or something before your workout. It's going, your body's like, okay, thank you. I'll just burn that. I don't need to burn any fat. I mean, why should I? You just gave me 700 calories, for God's sake. And it's just going to burn all that during your workout. See what I mean? So I typically I don't have like food before I work out. It's more liquids with my supplements in it, and, you know, maybe a little bit of half a banana you know, in the middle or something like that. I'm not trying to eat right before my workout because I'm trying to burn my belly during my workout.
Okay, so if I like a sugarier creamer in my coffee, that's not necessarily a bad thing right before I work out. That actually could be utilized as some fuel right before I work out.
Sure, yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Last thing, I've obviously heard of the concept before of protein as a pre-workout. I've only utilized it twice because both times I had heartburn so bad that I honestly thought I was having a heart attack, because I've never had heartburn before. And granted, it was like before a grappling session or something like that. But both times that I've had 20 to 30 grams of protein before my workouts, it has given me extremely bad heartburn. And it was like a liquid protein shake that I just drank before I went to work out. And I had it probably a half an hour prior to working out.
Do liquid protein shakes give you heartburn any other time?
No.
Okay. I don't have a great answer for you. The best answer I could give is sometimes my stomach as well gets irritated on a liquid protein that's really heavy amount, like say you're 25 or 30 grams, and not anything else with it. The protein is a little acidic, actually. It has amino acids, right, as the components of that protein. So it's a little acidic. So if I just hit myself with like 30 grams of whey protein in like water, let's just say, and I drink that, I could feel queasy. You know, I definitely could feel queasy. So you have to moderate that a little bit. You know, that's why maybe like a bar or a little bit of your yogurt or a little bit of your banana or something to help that settle in the stomach. That's the best answer that I would have for you. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
I do have a question.
Oh.
So
Yeah,
you
please.
had mentioned your pre-workout, just kind of how Sarah had broke it down. If you know you're going to do, let's say, 2 workouts a day, do you not want to exceed the 5 grams per your pre-workout? So I guess you would essentially be consuming 10 grams of creatine if you work out twice, or should that be in a daily most consumption, or can you do it again later if something comes up and you need something again for pre-workout?
Yeah, that's a good question. The creatine is the one exception. Okay, so let's just talk about the other ones. Everything besides the creatine, you can just double up again. Okay, that's okay. If you're working out twice a day, have some more protein later on, a little bit of L-arginine or beetroot to get your nitric oxide levels up, right? A little bit more beta-alanine. That's all fine. That's not a problem. The creatine, if you doubled it, that's not necessarily a problem, but it could just be wasteful and unnecessary and excessive. Okay, so when they talk about studies of how much creatine, they talk about a loading phase and a maintenance phase. The loading phase is kind of get the creatine stores up in your body. That's typically 20 grams a day for like a week. I didn't get into that because I didn't want to unnecessarily complicate the matter, because once you start creatine, you know, that's only the first week of your life that you're on it, essentially, right? Then after that, you're in your maintenance phase. So as your maintenance, you're ongoing, that's your 5 grams a day is what they talk about. So if you wanted to do that twice a day, yeah, you can get away with less. You're going to save yourself money. You're not going to be wasting anything. Do like 2.5 twice a day. But basically, your daily maintenance for creatine is about 5 grams a day.
Okay. And then the other stuff, you're good to go. If for some reason you're going to go do something and you're like, I need more energy, I can definitely consume that.
You're good to go. Oh, yeah, no problem. Mm-hmm. Yep.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, another thing on the anti-inflammatories, because I've been reading a little bit about this, and it's a little confusing when it comes to fish oils and curcumin. One of the ladies at the nutrition store told me that the best you should be, I think, consuming over 700 or 750 milligrams of curcumin for even to be effective.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was like, I wasn't sure, because there's other ones that you read and they have way less than that and they're supposed to be good. So if you know anything, could clarify that. And then fish oil too, the same thing. It's so many different milligrams, and how do you kind of figure out what works best for you when it comes to the fish oils, and maybe brand or maybe not so much brand? I'm not sure.
Sure, I can help you answer both those questions. Yeah, so the curcumin, the downside of the curcumin is it's not well absorbed. Okay, that's the downside. But most supplement companies know that, so they crank up the level a little bit. If they're a good supplement company, they'll crank up the level a little bit, and they'll also pair the curcumin with some other ingredient to help it be absorbed. So it's typically black pepper. So when you typically look at your curcumin bottle, it's going to say it has black pepper extract in there as well. That's a good thing. That's necessary. The black pepper helps the curcumin be absorbed, so we're all good. Okay. But it does need to be on the higher side. So like 750 or 1500. So either 750 once a day or 750 twice a day. That's where your solid anti-inflammatory dose is. So patients coming to me, for example, we work together. It's like, yeah, let's get you up to around 750 once or twice a day of a high quality curcumin. Parenthesis, there are even higher quality curcumin supplements than black pepper. That was sort of version 1.0. And now they have some curcumin supplements that have come out where they've done some engineering on the particle size, and it's ground up in a certain way and this and that, to where the absorption's like 10x better even than the black pepper. These curcumins are also more expensive, but in my mind, they have more value as well. So that's what I take personally. And this is what's being used, for example, at cancer institutions around the country, because curcumin has strong anti-cancer properties. So they're doing research on curcumin at UCLA Medical Center, for example, and MD Anderson, Houston. Well, what exact product are the researchers using? They're using this one that I'm talking about. Okay, it's called Theracumin HP, but it's this nanoparticle curcumin, and it's like 10x better than the black pepper paired stuff. So if you want to get at the highest level best curcumin supplement, again, talk to me about that. We could set up a visit. I could outline your supplements, show you exact brands on Amazon, just like I did for Sarah.
Okay.
Get you set up. And then the fish oil, that's a great question. The first concept is you need to know how many grams of omega-3s are in your capsule in your serving size, right? So when you get fish oil, it's a mix of different kind of omegas. Sometimes there's like omega-3, 6, even 9s in there. For the anti-inflammatory benefit, the best health benefit for your heart, your brain, and all that, that's the omega-3s. That's the number we're hung up about. So you need to know how many milligrams of omega-3s are in your serving size. Then you have to pay attention to your serving size, right? It might say 1,200 milligrams of omega-3s on the front of the bottle, but when you look, that's a serving size of 3 capsules, okay, versus 1 capsule. That's a big difference, right? So you just got to do a little bit of this math. And typically people aren't taking enough fish oil. So I've had even patients who have heart problems. And if you have heart problems, you definitely need to be on fish oil. They'll come in and they're like, yeah, doc, I'm taking my fish oil. I'm like, oh, okay, great. How many pills do you take? Oh, you know, like 2 a day. And I know right there in my mind, that's not enough, because even the most potent fish oil can cram at most 500 to 750 milligrams in 1 pill. So if they're taking 2 of those, they're at 1,000 to 1,500 milligrams. That's underdose for a heart patient right there. I already know that. So long story short, for a strong anti-inflammatory benefit, you want to be up around 2,000 to 3,000. That's your key number, milligrams omega-3s. Okay? 2,000 to 3,000 milligrams omega-3s. That could come from different ways. Could come from fish oil, could come from krill oil, right? Could come from flaxseed if you're vegan or something. That's okay. 2,000 to 3,000 milligrams omega-3s for a strong anti-inflammatory benefit for you. Interestingly, fish oil is one of my all-time favorite supplements to talk about. It's good for your brain. It is also promotes muscle synthesis and strength. So if you just do a little Google search on like fish oil and muscle strength, or fish oil and, muscle gain or something like that, you'll see that it's very closely tied in. I'm not sure exactly how it's related, but it is related. If you look at people's omega-3 levels and their fish oil intake, and then you look at, muscle and strength gains and all that stuff, those things are tied together. So I was reading some articles by this very famous strength and conditioning coach a couple of years back, and he's like, yeah, one of the first things you need to do is I get all my guys on 3,000 of fish oil a day. And I didn't understand why at that time. And then now reading more into the science of it, I do understand. So I'm scrupulous about keeping my own fish oil up. Again, if you want to, talk to me, we could set up a brief visit or an email. There's particular brands of fish oil I like. Again, kind of like I recommended to Sarah, I have my cheat sheet of like my favorite brands off of Amazon or Costco. I mean, my job is to like help your budget and give you the best possible product that I would want to use myself, or that I'd recommend to my mom, just think of it that way. So there's certain fish oils that I like off Amazon that are potent and that are fairly inexpensive and high quality, stuff like that. So.
Great, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if you said this earlier or not. What do you specialize in? Are you like an athletic doctor, or are you family doctor, or what do you specialize in?
Yeah, so I specialize in rehabilitation. So I wear different hats, but my first hat's rehabilitation. So that would mean you have an injury and I need to rehabilitate you, short of surgery. That's a strong focus for me. So in Sarah's case, I was like talking about her hamstring, doing this injection that we did to heal her hamstring, talking about certain stretches that I showed her. So rehabilitating people from injuries, big hat that I wear. So that's called physical medicine and rehabilitation, which is my precise field. You could also put the word sports medicine on that, since I deal with a lot of athletes, but I deal with everyday people as well, right? I've got grandmas and great grandmas that come in walkers who have hip and knee problems, and I'm just trying to help them get stronger. So that's part of what I do.
Physical therapy?
Yeah. So I will show you physical therapy exercise to do, right? Exactly. Or I'll give you handouts or send you to a video that's good. Or I have therapists that I work with, right? Of course. So then I'll say, hey, this guy's good for such and such problem. I send people to Jared, Sarah's husband, obviously, kind of along those lines. So rehabilitating people from athletic injuries is a big part of what I do. Beyond that, though, a lot about wellness and integrative medicine, I'll use those 2 words, is a lot of what I do, right? So people sometimes will come to me for their injury, and then we start talking about other stuff, and it's like, well, I feel like I have a foggy brain all the time, and I don't have energy, and I'm wondering if my thyroid's off, and I got all these food allergies, and my sleep is crummy, and I'm kind of stressed, right? So then just full on wellness and integrative medicine or holistic medicine, those are some keywords where I'm trying to get your body systems all functioning great, right? Besides just fixing the shoulder, achy back, or hamstring, it's more like overall approach. Let's get you all dialed into being healthy in those different ways that I just mentioned. So that's my other hat.
Are you contracted through insurances?
Yes and no. So the answer there is yes and no. So I went into business for myself recently. I had worked for Cadillac for 10 years in the Neuroscience Center from 2009 to 2019. It was great. Had a good experience. I just wanted to move on, and I felt like I'd have more freedom and just professional quality of life and satisfaction if I were to work for myself. So in working for myself, I've had to streamline the way I handle insurance, because you can imagine it has a lot of paperwork and some hassles, and I don't have a staff of 6 people to do insurance claims and all that. So the way it works with me is patients pay me initially, debit card, cash, whatever. They buy their visit. It's almost like buying something from Amazon. You can go on my website, you buy a visit with Dr. Turner. That's cool. Then if you have insurance, you just ask me to create a form that you can submit for reimbursement, right? And I email that to you as a PDF, and then you can go on to the insurance and request for reimbursement, and it typically works fine. Sometimes I'm considered an out-of-network provider or something like that, but I have plenty of patients who do that process, and it works pretty well for them.
Okay.
I have a question with, you talked about the fish oil.
Yeah.
Are those, because I haven't taken those, are those okay? Like, is there some of them that are safer than others if you have like shellfish allergies?
Okay. Good point. So shellfish allergies and fish oil should not be a conflict. That shouldn't interact at all. Okay. The shellfish allergies typically come up in products like glucosamine or chondroitin, which is more of an arthritis product. And sometimes those have little ground up bits of shellfish from which they get the chondroitin and such. But purely the fish oil, it wouldn't be a problem. Most fish oil supplements are high quality at this point. It's really not hard to find a high quality one. So most of them are like mercury free and heavy metal free and stuff, because of the way they purify it and process it and things like that. If you're eating wild fish, that's a little more touchy. You want to make sure that it's basically caught in, nice pristine water somewhere off Alaska or something like that, not farmed, raised and stuff. So you get a healthier quality meat that wouldn't be contaminated. That'd be your concept. But most fish oils, they'll go through a purification process. Almost think about like buying bottled water, right? Most bottled water goes through this purification process where you don't have to worry about contamination.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, sure. Is there anybody else?
Dr. Turner, with your notes that you email out, will you have recommendations or links for the supplements that you recommended for the pre-workout?
Yeah, I can do that. Sure. There's a product that I like. That's what I found to be the best pre-workout that combines most of those ingredients at the right doses that you'd want. That's a pretty darn good product. So I can send that one out.
Great.
And then there are some links, where separately you can get them on Amazon and such like that. I'll do that.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yep. Okay. Well, if there are no further questions, then I will sign off, and it's good to spend some time with you all today. I hope this information was helpful for you, encouraging, and keep you in top shape as you work with Sarah and pursue your goals.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Dr. Turner. It has really been a pleasure and super informative to have you with us. And I might talk to the ladies and see if there's a more specific topic that we're interested in, and maybe get you to come back in a month or so and have another chat with us, because this has been awesome.
Okay. Cool. I'd be up for it. Sounds good. Thanks, Sarah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. We appreciate it.
Thank you, ladies.
Thank
Yes,
you.
Good. I'm glad. You're welcome. Thank you. Take care. Have a good weekend, guys.